Merci de prendre place. Avant de passer à l'examen des points à l'ordre du jour, j'aimerais faire quelques annonces. Alors, la première annonce, c'est qu'il va y avoir des modifications sur la composition des groupes de travail. En particulier, le groupe de travail études de commerce important avec l'ajout de CSFI comme membre de ce groupe de travail. Pour le groupe de travail nomenclature, nous ajoutons la Fédération de Russie. Nous avons des résumés de séances qui sont disponibles. PC somme 1, PC somme 2. Et si nous avons le temps, nous pourrons les examiner en fin de journée. Tout comme les rapports des groupes de travail qui sont également disponibles. PC comme doc 1 pour la nomenclature, PC comme doc 2 pour les bois de rose. Alors je vais vous demander de vérifier régulièrement le site internet pour voir les documents qui sont mis à votre disposition et afin que vous puissiez les regarder et nous pourrons en parler en temps opportun. Donc, nous allons commencer par le document qui a été préparé par le secrétariat. Il s'agit du document PC28, Doc 23. Je donne donc la parole au secrétariat.
Thank you, Chair. Document PC28 Doc 23 provides information on the implementation of the decisions on edible tuberous orchids. The development of identification materials for key species in trade used for shikanda production has been initiated with funding support from Switzerland. An example of the proposed identification sheets being developed is included in the annex to the document. The Secretariat is considering potential options to develop a DNA-based identification method to detect orchids in processed products in trade. The Secretariat has not received requests for support from parties on NDFs or enforcement-related matters. The Plans Committee is invited to consider the recommendations in paragraph 14 of the document. Thank you, Chair.
Merci, secrétariat. Je donne la parole aux membres du comité. Europe, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair. We welcome the funding from Switzerland to fund a decision 20.237A1 to compile the identification tools and methods. We welcome the ID sheets prepared in the CITES identification manual, but also note that much work and guidance is still needed for this group, with over 374 edible orchid species found in trade. And the Q report highlights that in paragraph 8b that we need identification sheets for key species, but it would be good to have an indication of the selection and number of key species. We'd be happy to provide inputs on developing this identification guide and support and enable non-detriment findings for this overlooked group, and which is needed fully to implement the suite of decisions. Regarding the potential study options to develop the DNA-based identification method to distinguish all Orchidaceae from non-Orchidaceae species, we would like to mention two particular things. Number one, for clarity, the PC European member Hugo de Boer, to my left here, has been consulted rather than engaged in the matter, and as a specialist in DNA-based identification of orchids, he has provided expertise on the possibility of this method, but it's not something that he would be involved in developing. And it would be good to have an idea whether funding has been secured for this DNA project. We anticipate and look forward to reviewing the developed resources and materials at the upcoming Plants Committee meeting number 29. Thank you.
Merci à la région Europe. Je donne la parole à la région Afrique.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Africa region would like to comment on the agenda item ahead, submitted by the Secretariat. We thank the Secretariat for preparing this document. Africa region is also grateful to the government of Switzerland for funding implementation of this activity. The Secretariat is grateful for funding this activity on comparison of identification tools for edible tuberous orchids. Madam Chair, Africa region takes note of the document and note that Africa is a range region of other various edible tuberous orchid species. These orchids have been traded across borders as part of international relationship to share resources for trade and livelihoods. However, there are limitations on species identification technologies when specimens pass from one border to another. Madam Chair, we request for continued efforts to Africa region to cover other several species which are not covered by this study in order to enhance enforcement in the region. Thank you, Chair.
Merci aux représentants de la région Afrique. Je donne la parole aux partis ayant statut d'observateur. Royaume-Uni, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Secretariat, for your work on tuberous orchids. We support the recommendations in the document and would like to provide an update on red list assessments for Chikanda, which parties may find helpful for producing non-detriment findings, as mentioned in Decision 20.236. The Royal Botanic Gardens Kew have now assessed 52 Chikanda species and submitted these to the IUCN Red List for publication. During this assessment process, a further 23 Chikanda species have been identified, which were not listed in the report entitled A Review of the Edible Orchid Trade, submitted to PC26. Kew are intending to publish the revised list of edible tuberous orchids through a scientific publication, which we can share with the Plants Committee when available. Thank you.
Merci à la représentante du Royaume-Uni. La parole est accordée à la Fédération de Russie.
Спасибо, госпожа председатель. Мы благодарим секретариат за подготовленный документ. Поддерживаем предложение члена комитета, представляющего Африку, и считаем важным работу по сбору идентификационных материалов по орхидным для оказания помощи странам. Такая работа была бы полезной, аналогично это проводилось по другим видам, в том числе по комитету по животным, для возможности оказания технической помощи странам. Спасибо.
Merci à la représentante de la Fédération de Russie. Je donne la parole à la Zambie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Zambia, we'd like to thank you, the Chair of the Plans Committee, for this document, PC 28.30, and we do welcome the efforts to clarify implementation of annotation number 4G. The challenge identified, verifying whether orchid material in finished products is genuinely derived from artificial propagation, is highly relevant to our national context. In Zambia, Madam Chair, wild terrestrial orchids are central to the traditional food product widely known as chikanda. There is no traditional event without this food being on the table. It is an important cultural and livelihood resource. Rising commercial demand has increased pressure on wild populations, making clear and enforceable traceability measures essential. We therefore support the proposals in paragraph 7, particularly the requirement for visible, verifiable labeling, including the species used, confirmation of artificial propagation, and the country of final processing. Such clarity will
Excusez-moi, représentante de la Zambie, nous traitons le point 23 à l'ordre du jour et non pas le point 30 qui porte sur la notation 4G. Donc c'est orchidées tubéreuses comestibles et c'est le document PC 28 Doc 23.
That's well noted. I'll intervene later. Thank you.
D'accord, merci. Y a-t-il d'autres parties ayant statut d'observateur qui souhaiteraient prendre la parole? Autrement, je donne la parole aux observateurs. États-Unis, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just that made us notice that actually the agenda item being reported on the screen is the last one we did in plenary. So just a note to update that. Thank you.
Merci pour la remarque États-Unis. Il y a eu quelques problèmes logistiques et là, je pense que c'est le bon point à l'ordre du jour qui est affiché sur l'écran. Je vais donner la parole au secrétariat pour quelques éclaircissements.
Thank you, Chair. Just in response to the questions posed by the representative from Europe, the funding currently secured will depend on whether what the cost is in terms of this differentiating non-orchidaceae from orchids in final products. So we have not received a quotation for the work to be done. So we hope that the funding will be sufficient, but we will reach out in terms of the notification that we publish on funding required if the funds are inadequate. But we hope that the funding received from Switzerland will be adequate to cover the cost. And we are using as a basis the Annex 2 from COP19 INF9, the study that was done on orchids. And we are going through a prioritization process in terms of actual species in trade. And we can share that list with the members of the Plants Committee, but that is our basis, and noting from the UK that the additional 23 have been identified. So we will be in touch with them to get an updated list. Thank you.
Merci, secrétariat. Merci, secrétariat. Je ne vois pas d'autres demandes de parole. Aussi, je vais conclure sur ce point. Le comité pour les plantes convient des recommandations A et B du paragraphe 14 du document PC 28 doc.23 avec les commentaires formulés en plénière. Nous allons passer au point suivant qui porte sur l'examen périodique des espèces inscrites à l'annexe 1 et à l'annexe 2. Ce document PC28 Doc 27 a été préparé par le secrétariat qui va nous le présenter.
Thank you, Chair. This document provides an update to the Plants Committee on the periodic review of flora species included in Appendices 1 and 2 in compliance with the Resolution 14.8. It presents the current review schedule, including annexes recording species selected for the periodic review across different intersessional periods, with Annex 1A providing a summary of ongoing periodic reviews as of May 2026. At COP20, parties adopted an amendment to Resolution Con 14.8, removing criterion D from the species selection process, and the Secretariat notes an incorrect cross-reference to be addressed. The Secretariat notes that no range states have expressed interest in undertaking reviews of 7 species selected at PC 27. In accordance with the resolution, these will be deleted from the review list if no volunteer comes forward within 2 intersessional periods. No reviews or progress reports have been received from the range states that volunteered to undertake reviews from earlier review periods. This included species for the Philippines, Sidicium philippensis. The Plants Committee may wish to consider whether this review should remain ongoing. The document also provides the Plants Committee with information on responses received from parties concerning the appropriate use of source and purpose codes for trade in 3 Appendix 1 listed species identified at PC 27. The recommendations for consideration by the Plants Committee include addressing non-substantive cross-referencing errors in the resolution and encouraging range states to provide updates on the status of ongoing reviews, complete outstanding reviews, and volunteer to undertake reviews for species for which no volunteers have come forward. Thank you, Chair.
Merci au secrétariat pour la présentation de ce document. J'invite les membres du comité à prendre la parole. Europe, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair. We agree to your request to consider the correction of the non-substantive errors. We find this to be correct. We agree to the removal of the selected species COP15 to COP17, COP13 to COP15 from the process. On more recent reviews, we would request maybe some updates from the parties involved with the reviews on growing, and their inputs can help us decide maybe whether to continue some of these reviews or not. These are the reviews between COP17 and COP22. One thing we noticed that with such low uptake of reviews, we suggest maybe focusing some of the outstanding reviews maybe to possible collaborators, which could be carried out maybe by CITES master students, other organisations which might be reviewing data on sustainability and conservation of particular species and particular groups in conservation programmes, such as maybe the Conifer Conservation Programme and maybe some of the BEASA master students. And we were okay with the responses on the Annex 1, Sauceria, Aloe and Aloe haworthioides. Thank you.
Je remercie la représentante de la région Europe. Je donne maintenant la parole aux partis ayant statut d'observateur. Chine.
Thank you, Chair. China wishes to clarify that Sauceria costus is not native to China. Its presence results solely the result of introduction and cultivation more than a century ago. We recommend that this distinction be reaffirmed in the record to prevent misunderstanding. We further note that certain taxonomic sources contain inconsistent or ambiguous references to this species. Providing brief background and highlighting these discrepancies will help parties base their deliberation on accurate distributional information and consistent taxonomic interpretation. Thank you.
Merci à la Chine. Je donne la parole au Mexique.
Gracias, señora presidenta. México desea informar que continúa avanzando con las revisiones periódicas de 4 especies para las cuales se ofreció como voluntario durante la reunión 27 de este comité en 2024. Estas son el cactus tiponche, Pachyserios militaris, el ocotillo de Tehuacán, Fukeria purpusi, el cirio, Fukeria columnaris, y el oyamel o pinabete abies guatemalensis. Esperamos presentar resultados en la reunión 29 del Comité de Flora el próximo año. Gracias, señora presidenta.
Madame l'interprète, vous êtes toute excusée. Donc, États-Unis.
Someone's not saying my name. Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States wishes to align itself with the comments from Europe, and in addition, I'm not sure if they mentioned this, but we would support retaining the species selected at PC 27 for the 2 intercessional periods in hopes that someone takes up their reviews. In response to notification to the parties number 2024-084, the United States agreed to conduct the review for Sarracenia rubra jonesii, an Appendix 1 taxon endemic to the United States. It is the only native species included in the list of potential species for consideration in the periodic review. And we are preparing to submit a working document to PC 29. Thank you.
Merci. Aux États-Unis? Pas de demande de parole des partis en statut d'observateur. La liste est ouverte pour les observateurs. SSN.
Muchas gracias, Presidenta. En SSN queremos hacer un llamado especial a todas las partes en relación a este examen periódico de los apéndices para que se ponga un énfasis más fuerte hacia aquellas especies que están en un apéndice menor y que requieren mayor protección. Lo que hemos observado durante muchísimos años es que este examen ha servido para sacar especies de las CITES y para bajarlas de apéndice, sobre todo de apéndice 1 a apéndice 2. Y prácticamente no se presentan propuestas para subir de apéndice a las especies. Me parece que es muy importante utilizar los recursos también para dotar a las especies que lo requieren de mayor protección. Muchas gracias.
Merci, SSN. UNEP, WCMC.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the amendment submitted by parties in Annex 2, UNEP WCMC confirms that we have reviewed these updates. However, further information is needed from some parties before changes can be made to the CITES trade database. So we will contact the relevant parties as necessary to ensure that the trade database is as accurate as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Merci. Je vous reviens pour la conclusion sur ce point, car je n'ai plus de demande de parole. Alors, pour le point à l'examen, voici la conclusion. Le comité pour pour les plantes convient des recommandations figurant au paragraphe 18 du document PC 28 doc 27, y compris le retrait de l'espèce Edicium philippinensis de l'examen, ainsi que les observations, commentaires formulés en séance. Le Comité pour les plantes prend note du fait que le Mexique et les États-Unis d'Amérique soumettront des examens qui seront finalisés, qui seront examinés à la 29e session du Comité pour les plantes. Voici la conclusion pour ce point à l'ordre du jour. Je ne vois pas d'objection, donc cette conclusion vous convient. Merci. Thank you. Avec votre indulgence, je vais vous demander que l'on passe d'abord le point 30 à l'examen, puis le point 29, parce que le point 30 nous demande de faire des recommandations au groupe de travail intercession du comité permanent sur les annotations. Donc, c'est la raison pour laquelle je voudrais examiner d'abord ce point 30, le chlore, puis passer au point 29. Est-ce que cela vous sied? OK. Donc, nous allons passer au point 30. Alors, le document PC28 Doc 30 a été soumis par la présidence du comité pour les plantes. Je vais donc vous le présenter. Ce document répond à la décision 20-254 qui charge notre comité de préciser par une note de bas de page la notation dièse 4G en précisant ce que signifie issus de reproduction artificielle, les produits cosmétiques finis contenant des parties et produits de 5 espèces d'orchidées couvertes par la notation dièse 4G. Aujourd'hui, il est impossible de vérifier à partir d'un produit fini, une crème par exemple, si l'orchidée qui entre dans sa composition est issue de la reproduction artificielle. Nous nous sommes appuyés, comme demandé par la décision, sur la note de bas de page P3, déjà utilisée pour certains hybrides d'orchidées reproduits artificiellement. Mais les critères physiques, comme ceux de reconnaissance d'un hybride à son apparence, ce qui est consigné dans la note de bas de page P3, paragraphe A, ne s'applique pas à un produit transformé. Seule la section B de la note P3, qui est relative à l'étiquetage, reste exploitable pour les produits finis. Aussi, nous avons proposé 2 options. La première est la suivante, c'est d'intégrer l'exigence d'étiquetage dans la notation dièse 4G, comme formulée dans le paragraphe 7A du document PC28 Doc 30, et ou l'option de créer une nouvelle note de bas de page reprenant les mêmes éléments de l'option 1, mais sur le modèle de la note de bas de page P3. Aussi, le comité pour les plantes est invité à examiner les propositions qui figurent donc au paragraphe 7 du document PC 28 Doc 30 et de soumettre ses propositions au comité permanent par l'intermédiaire de son groupe de travail intercession sur les annotations. Voici l'essence de ce document. Je donne la parole aux membres du comité. Aziz, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair. We support the proposal to add the additional text to annotation 4G as written in paragraph 7. We believe it would improve transparency and facilitate implementation and enforcement, as well as to satisfy the condition derived from artificial propagation. We also agree to submit the proposal to Standing Committee. Thank you, Chairs.
Merci aux représentants de la région Asie. La parole est à l'Europe.
Thank you, Chair. We're really happy to see the proposals to resolve this issue set out in paragraph 7, and we'd like to agree with Asia that we would prefer the text to be with the annotation 4G labelled with the more detailed information, the name of the species, the products derived from artificial propagation, the final processing country, clearly visible, which will allow for easy verification. We think this will greatly enhance enforcement of a previously unenforceable exemption with no clear labels visible, and we also agreed to submit to the Standing Committee to its intersessional working group on annotation. Thank you.
Merci à la représentante de la région Europe. Je donne maintenant la parole aux partis ayant statut d'observateur. États-Unis, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair. The United States appreciates the Secretariat's efforts considering the wording to be similar to existing annotations currently used in CITES. While we think that the two suggestions made by the Secretariat in paragraph 7 of document PC 28 Doc 30 will require careful consideration and discussion, we support the Plants Committee forwarding the two suggestions to the Standing Committee's Annotations Working Group for its consideration and refinement. Among other potential issues, it might be more appropriate to include country of origin, either instead of or in addition to the country of final processing, which is not an existing term used in CITES, because it is the country of origin where the specimen is artificially propagated. That's just one observation, and we look forward to further discussion within the Standing Committee Working Group. Thank you.
Merci aux États-Unis pour ces remarques. Indonésie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Indonesia supports the proposed clarification of the exemption under annotation 4G, particularly the requirement that finished product be clearly labeled with the name of the species. A statement confirming that the products are derived from artificially propagated specimen and the country of final processing. At the same time, Indonesia emphasized the importance of establishing a sufficiently robust and variable mechanism to ensure that the exemption is not used for products containing material sourced from a wild population. This is particularly important considering that Phalaenopsis amabilis naturally occur in Indonesia. Indonesia therefore supports further consideration of the proposal by the Standing Committee's Intersessional Working Group on annotations with due attention to practical verification and traceability measures. Thank you, Chair.
Merci à la représentante de l'Indonésie. Je donne la parole au Mexique.
Gracias, señora presidenta. México no forma parte del grupo de trabajo intersesional sobre anotaciones, por lo que compartimos nuestros comentarios al Comité de Flora, solicitando sean transmitidos en su reporte al Comité Permanente. En principio, México prefiere la opción A del párrafo 7, pero consideramos necesario incluir entre los datos del etiquetado 2 elementos más. El número de registro del vivero o matrícula de identificación y el país de origen, como ya sugirió Estados Unidos, además del país del procesamiento final. Esto fortalecerá la trazabilidad de los especímenes desde su origen y permitirá asegurar que sean ejemplares efectivamente derivados de la reproducción artificial. Gracias, señora presidenta.
Merci à la représentante du Mexique. La Chine, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair. China recommends the committee request the Secretariat to issue a questionnaire to parties, especially range states of the 5 species concerned, to gather views before any proposal is finalized. Thank you.
Merci à la représentante de la Chine. Je donne la parole à la Zambie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would like to support the recommendations as laid out in A and B by the Secretary. Thank you.
Merci à la Zambie. Fédération de Russie.
Спасибо, госпожа председатель. Российская Федерация благодарит секретариат за подготовленный документ. Хотели бы поддержать предложение А в пункте 7, касающееся добавления текста к аннотации, а также поддержать предложение стран о добавлении страны происхождения для более четкого понимания происхождения вида. Спасибо.
Asie, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair. We also agree with Mexico proposal to add both country of origin and country of final process with justification as mentioned by Mexico. Thank you, Chairs.
Je donne maintenant la parole aux observateurs. Pas de demande de parole. Je vais essayer de vous proposer une conclusion qui réponde à, qui reflète nos échanges. Mais avant, le secrétariat voudrait apporter une précision.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick reminder to the Plants Committee that in the previous intersessional period, we did issue a notification and obtained information on the implementation of annotation 4G as it is at the moment, and that included information that we received from the range states that are affected. And if I recall correctly, all the range states indicated that the trade is in artificially propagated specimens. The key issue of clarification was how enforcement officials will know that a product is derived from artificially propagated orchids, and so that is what we're trying to address. So just to a kind reminder that we did go through a consultation process in the previous intersessional period on annotation 4G, and if there are further issues to be clarified, maybe the Standing Committee Annotations Working Group can deal with it.
Merci, secrétaire. Aziz, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair, and thank the Secretary to make that clarification. And Asia have to remember that for this footnote of the annotation, it was raised at the COP20, and as the suggestion from the specific parties. So I think there may be a new procedure of, gain another round of the questionnaire from the range state to see if these two options can be considered. And also it is really important for the range state to see if it's it really can be implemented and added to the label. So we kindly may agree with the Zambia's and the U.S. option suggestion for forward these two options to the Standing Committee Intersessional Working Group for their consideration. Maybe from that. With the intersessional working group, they may invite the Secretary to issue another round of questionnaire to seek the opinions from the range states. Thank you, Chair.
Merci à la représentante de l'Asie. L'Europe, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Asia and US. We would agree then that the country of origin could be included, but we find the proposal by Mexico, which would put in the registration of nursery, to be a little bit too far in that the country of origin could hold this information. Thank you.
Merci à l'Europe. Merci. Alors, je voudrais que vous m'aidiez pour la conclusion sur ce point. Parce qu'au début des échanges, nous avions plutôt un soutien pour l'option 7A, c'est-à-dire celle qui consistait à amender la notation. Mais au fur et à mesure des échanges, nous avons eu aussi des les soutiens pour l'option 7A et 7B telles que préconisées dans le paragraphe 9 du document PC 28 Doc 30. Avec des amendements, là je pense qu'on a eu un accord là-dessus, sur l'ajout du pays d'origine. Et là, est-ce qu'on pourrait dire sur et le numéro d'enregistrement de la pépinière si disponible? Voilà, pour répondre à la préoccupation du Mexique et à celle de l'Europe. Donc, ce que je vais vous demander là, à l'instant, les membres du comité, est-ce que nous soumettons au groupe intercession sur les annotations du comité permanent les deux options, 7A et 7B, avec les amendements apportés sur le pays d'origine et le numéro d'enregistrement de la pépinière si disponible. Alors, membres du comité, vous avez la parole.
Yes, because
Europe, vous avez la parole.
To clarify, for Europe, we don't necessarily would require the registration of the nursery, and we could agree to sending 7A and B to the annotations working group. Thank you.
Merci Europe. Mais ce que j'ai compris de votre intervention précédente, c'est que vous disiez que avoir un numéro de pépinière serait difficile à obtenir. Et la proposition que l'on vous fait, c'est de dire si ce numéro est disponible, on le fournit. Voilà, donc est-ce que vous êtes d'accord avec cette proposition? S'il est disponible, on le renseigne. S'il ne l'est pas, on ne le renseigne pas.
I think we're not so bothered on the nursery once the country has, the nursery registration on record. If the number was available, it would be okay, but we're not pushing on it. Yeah.
Merci beaucoup, Europe. Océanie.
Thank you, Chair. Supportive of A and B going to the Standing Committee. I think the proposal for including the nursery registration details, if it's available, is a good one. We've been talking a lot about traceability, and I think where we can, we should be trying to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Merci, Océanie. Kenya.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kenya, we are also aligned to the proposal that, the recommendation that the two proposals are submitted to the Standing Committee for consideration of the Working Group on Annotation. We consider the first proposal is to assist with enforcement by presenting on the labels the details about the species that is being traded and the country from where that trade is happening, certainly believing that if the country is mentioned in the label, then anyone who wants to verify the source of the nursery or the facility where the artificial propagation has happened can always find it. Then the second proposal is about providing the information to elaborate on the details we are giving with respect to annotation 4G. So we consider that the two proposals A and B are presented to the Standing Committee for the consideration of the working group. Thank you.
Merci au Kenya. Merci à tous. Je pense qu'on peut avoir une conclusion sur ce point. Donc, la conclusion serait la suivante. Le comité pour les plantes convient des recommandations au paragraphe 9 du document PC28 doc.30 avec les amendements suivants portant sur le pays d'origine en petit 4 et sur le numéro d'enregistrement de la pépinière si disponible en 5. Je vous remercie. Merci. Maintenant, nous passons au document PC28 doc.29 qui porte sur les annotations. Ce document a été soumis par le Royaume-Uni de Grande-Bretagne et d'Irlande du Nord qui préside le groupe de travail du comité permanent sur les annotations. Vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair. In accordance with Decision 20.251, the Standing Committee Working Group on Annotations was re-established at SCAT. We thank the working group members for their contributions so far. Discussions have focused on annotations 11, 12, and 14, as summarized in PC 28, Doc 29. The recommendations listed in paragraph 16 of PC 28, Doc 29 invite the Plants Committee to A. Nominate a Plants Committee member to participate in the Standing Committee's Intersessional Working Group on Annotations. B. Offer comments and guidance relating to the working group mandate. C. Provide scientific or technical guidance for distinguishing exhausted from non-exhausted agarwood powder and share any identification tools that could be used in laboratories or by frontline enforcement officials. And D, suggest any additional work related to annotations that could be directed to the working group as per paragraph A, numeral 4 of Decision 20.251. Thank you.
Merci à la représentante du Royaume-Uni. La parole est accordée aux membres du comité. Europe.
Madame la Présidente, c'est le mauvais micro. C'est les États-Unis, c'est la région nord-américaine. Est-ce que je peux y aller tout de même? Oui? Parfait. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. The North America region appreciates the leadership of the United Kingdom in chairing the Standing Committee's Intersessional Annotation Working Group and does not have additional issues to include in the working group's mandate at this time. The North America region looks forward to continuing to engage in the working group discussions and to reviewing the issues identified in the party and observer responses to the notification issued by the Secretariat in line with Decision 20.252. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Merci à la région Amérique du Nord. On a des problèmes ici. Vous êtes affiché ici comme Europe. Donc, voilà. Maintenant, je donne la parole à l'Europe.
Thank you, Chair. And we thank the working group for all of the lot of very hard work carrying out. So we also find that the ongoing issue of distinguish exhausted from non-exhausted agarwood powder not to be resolved to any satisfaction, and maybe this might never be unless clearer guidance can be produced, and this should be a priority for the range states. And we agree to recommendation D that work related to annotations be directed to the working group as per paragraph A 4 of Decision 20.251. So thank you.
Merci. Nous avons maintenant la région Amérique centrale, du Sud et Caraïbes qui souhaite s'exprimer. Vous avez la parole.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Sí, nos gustaría saber si también podríamos participar de este grupo de trabajo, dado que toca la anotación 11. Estamos interesados.
Ok, je voulais savoir la participation que vous souhaitez au groupe de travail intercession sur le comité pour les plantes, c'est en tant que représentant en tant que membre du comité pour les plantes ou en tant qu'un parti en statut membre du comité pour les plantes. C'est ça? Ok, vous êtes, d'après le plan de travail 2026-2029 du comité pour les plantes, vous êtes désigné comme représentant du comité pour les plantes dans ce groupe de travail intercession. Voilà. En même temps que le représentant de l'Europe, Hugo. Donc, tous les deux, vous allez représenter le comité pour les plantes. Je donne la parole à l'Asie.
Thank you, Chair. Asia thanks the United Kingdom for its leadership of the Standing Committee Intersessional Working Group on Annotations and for the reports in PC 28.29. In response to the invitation in paragraph D, Asia suggests that the working group consider 2 additional annotations in the future work, including annotation #10 for Propizilla inchinata, given implementation challenges following its revision at COP20, and annotation #19 of Commiphora vitae, where further technical discussion on identification and implementation guidance would be valuable. Thank you, Chair.
Merci à l'Asie. Je donne la parole aux partis ayant statut d'observateur. Indonésie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Indonesia appreciates the efforts of the Standing Committee Intersessional Working Group on Annotation in gathering information from parties regarding the implementation of paragraph E of annotation number 14, particularly concerning the exemption for exhausted agarwood powder, including compressed powder in all shapes. In response to the CITES notification to the parties number 2026/0559, Indonesia has provided a detailed technical explanation of the process that result in exhausted and non-exhausted agarwood powder, including the relevant documentation and approval procedures applied by the Indonesian CITES Management Authority. Indonesia recognizes the practical challenge faced by the frontline officers in distinguishing between these 2 types of powder. Indonesia is therefore currently developing practical reference materials to support their identifications and to promote a common and consistent understanding among relevant authorities in the field. Once finalized, these reference materials will be made publicly available and shared with the Secretariat, parties, and other relevant stakeholders. Thank you, Chair.
Merci à la représentante de l'Indonésie. Brésil, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brazil, as a range state of Aniba rosedora, emphasized the importance of ensuring that the further work under Decision 20.251 preserves the coverage of essential oil under Annotation 12, as this is the main commodity of the species in international trade from Brazil. In developing the distinction between regulated extracts and fragrance or flavor mixtures, the working group should consider safeguards to ensure that mere dilution, repackaging, or the addition of a minor component does not automatically remove an otherwise regulated extract from the scope of the annotation. Any criteria developed should be objective and operationally applicable by CITES authorities and enforcement officers. Thank you.
Merci à la représentante du Brésil. Allemagne, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to the United Kingdom and the Standing Committee's working group for the work done. We would like to make two comments on document 29. With regard to paragraph 9, we want to commend the Standing Committee's working group on the product-based approach as suggested in this paragraph to develop guidance for annotations 11 and 12, including the suggested exemption of fragrance and flavor mixtures if the extract relevant to CITES is an ingredient, while pure extracts, essential oils, powders, or other primary derivatives would remain regulated even if packaged for retail trade. This approach appears reasonable and useful and could contribute to greater legal clarity and facilitation of consistent implementation by CITES management authorities and enforcement officers. If complemented by a reference to mixtures of active ingredients for medicinal products and food supplements too, it would also reflect the rationales for the development of other annotations, in particular to the annotation 19 for Commiphora YTE. And any outcomes of these discussions should therefore be checked whether it could potentially be used in the context of further annotations, such as annotation 19, to streamline the use of terms and for facilitating the implementation. Regarding paragraph 15, in replies to notification 2026/059, a need for guidance related to the new or amended annotations from COP20 was flagged by respondents to the notification, as well as in the recent comment by the Asian representative. With regard to this, we would like to draw the attention to information document PC28 in 15, compiled and submitted by Germany and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. This information document contains a new guidance for the implementation of annotation 19 for Commiphora YTE in CITES Appendix 2, aiming to support CITES authorities and enforcement officers with the interpretation of this annotation and with identifying relevant products and commodities in trade. We hope that the guidance document can help implementing the new listing of Commiphora YTE, and we would be happy to receive any kind of feedback and comments from users, and would of course welcome any possible consideration by relevant CITES bodies, such as the Standing Committee's working group on annotations, if deemed appropriate in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Merci à l'Allemagne. L'Afrique du Sud.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In line with the recommendation in paragraph D, South Africa would also like to add a proposal on the work of the working group to also look into annotation 17 which deals with the issues regarding the interpretations of the definitions of logs, sawn wood, veneer sheet, plywood, as well as transformed wood. More especially to clarify the definitions of the specimens which are contained within the definition of transformed wood. Thank you.
Merci à l'Afrique du Sud. Observateur, vous avez la parole. Pas de demande de parole. Merci. Donc, conclusion sur le point PC 28, DOC 29. Le comité pour les plantes désigne, petit a, le comité pour les plantes désigne Monsieur Hugo Debeurre, représentant de la région Europe, et Madame Maria Tonelli, représentant de la région Amérique centrale, du Sud et Caraïbes, à participer comme membre du comité pour les plantes au groupe de travail intercession du comité permanent sur les annotations. Petit b, note le mandat du groupe de travail intercession du comité permanent sur les annotations. Petit c, recommande que les pays de l'ère de répartition continuent de partager tout outil d'identification susceptible d'être utilisé pour distinguer la poudre de bois d'agar épuisée de la poudre non épuisée. Petit d, propose que le groupe de travail intercession du comité permanent sur les annotations considère les annotations 10, 17 et 19 et l'annotation 4G comme convenu dans les recommandations du document PC28 DOC 30. Voici la conclusion. Ok, Lazie, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair. Is it possible to representative for Asia also join with the intersessional working group? Thank you, chairs.
Ok, c'est noté. Y a-t-il d'autres demandes de parole parmi les membres? Les partis ayant statut d'observateur, Non. Le point à l'agenda est clos. Nous passons au point suivant, qui est un compendium présenté par le secrétariat. Secrétariat, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair. And just to note that we are introducing the following 3 items: a cooperation with the Global Strategy for Plant Conservation, guidance on terms related to the production and source of CITES regulated plants and Boswellia tree species. And in the compendium, the Secretariat provides a brief update on the way forward in terms of implementation of these 3 topics linked to decisions. And this is for the Plants Committee to note at this point in time. And then just also to please take note that with regard to the task force on illegal trade in specimens of CITES listed tree species, further information will be shared at the 29th meeting of the Plants Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Merci au secrétariat. Membre du comité, vous avez la parole. Alors, nous allons commencer par les commentaires sur le point 8, à savoir la coopération avec la stratégie mondiale pour la conservation des plantes. Europe, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair, and we thank the Secretariat for these reports and updates, and we note that the Secretariat could not attend the CBD meetings due to capacity and resource constraints. In the European region, we have reviewed the annex list of potential CITES activities and the many possible contributions from CITES in our region to the voluntary actions of the Global Strategy for Plant Conservation, and we note in the many areas in which CITES contributes to support global plant conservation. Thank you.
Merci à la région Europe. Parti ayant statut d'observateur, vous avez la parole. Observateur. Botanical Garden.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to present InfoDoc 12 on behalf of BGCI, which ties in with agenda items 8 and 20 of PC 28 Compendium. Botanic Gardens collectively manage the world's largest coordinated ex situ plant conservation network. They maintain more than 105,000 plant species across 3,500 known institutions worldwide. These collections underpin species recovery, ecological restoration, scientific research, and the implementation of both CITES and the Convention on Biological Diversity. A fundamental requirement of this global conservation system is the ability to exchange plant material internationally. These exchanges are inherently non-commercial and occur between institutions operating under rigorous collection management systems. An important component of this is Botanic Garden accreditation. It provides an internationally recognized benchmark for botanic gardens, requiring institutions to demonstrate that they meet professional standards in governance and scientific collection management. Accredited gardens maintain documented accession records, provenance information, legal acquisition records, and long-term institutional commitment to conservation. Accredited gardens are independently assessed. This provides confidence that participating institutions operate internationally by internationally recognized standards. The information document demonstrates that accredited botanic gardens already maintain comprehensive records of provenance and legal acquisition, including propagation history and subsequent material transfers. They routinely work with CITES management authorities, national plant protection organizations, and customs authorities, and already operate within robust regulatory and biosecurity frameworks. The document proposes strengthening CITES controls. It supports ResConf 16.5 on the cooperation with the Global Strategy for Plant Conservation by facilitating plant material transfers for CITES-listed plant species, required to implement the GSPC and to contribute to the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Additionally, it complements the work under decisions 20.155 to 20.159 on the guidance relating to the production and source of CITES-regulated plants by highlighting the importance of robust provenance records, artificial propagation standards, and transparent documentation throughout the movement of this conservation material. This information document suggests exploring whether CITES precedents for trusted institutions could be extended to accredited botanic gardens undertaking non-commercial conservation transfers. In particular, it builds on the principles already established in ResConf 11.15 on the exchange of specimens for scientific purposes and ResConf 9.19 concerning registered nurseries for exporting artificially propagated Appendix 1 plants. We hope that this information document provides a constructive contribution to any future discussions on how botanic gardens can help facilitate legitimate conservation action while maintaining high standards of traceability, transparency, and regulatory oversight, which are fundamental for the implementation of CITES. Thank you, Chair.
Merci. Je ne vois pas d'autres demandes de parole. Aussi, je vais conclure sur le point 8 de la manière suivante. Le comité pour les plantes prend note du document présentés par le secrétariat, ainsi que des commentaires faits par la région Europe et le Botanical Garden Conservation International. Merci. Nous passons maintenant au point 21. Membres du comité, vous avez la parole. Europe.
Thank you, Chair. We take note of the document on Boswellia trees, and we look forward to the notification in the third quarter of 26. And we look forward to working with others to support any initiative to fulfill the draft decisions on these important, threatened and very rare species. Thank you.
Merci à la région Europe, région Afrique.
Thank you, Chair. Africa region also takes note of the document. Africa is a region for Boswellia species, so we take note of the document have been done, and will be in a position to participate whatever development is going to take place. Thank you, Chair.
Merci à la région Afrique. Oman, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair. The Sultanate of Oman appreciate the Secretariat for the update of Boswellia species. Oman remains fully committed to the conservation and sustainable management of Boswellia sacra, a species of important ecological, cultural, and economic value. Through a coordinated national approach, Oman has strengthened to protection of natural habitat, sustainable grazing management, conservation of genetic resource, propagation and restoration program, scientific research, and monitoring efforts. Oman has implemented national action to support the long-term conservation of Boswellia sacra, including the protection of natural population, propagation programs, seed conservation, and conservation effort outside natural habitat. These efforts are supported through cooperation among national sectors, including Environment Authority, the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Water Resource, Oman Botanic Garden, and Research Institute. Recent studies and monitoring efforts indicate positive progress in the conservation state of Boswellia sacra in Oman. This finding reflects the effectiveness of national conservation action and sustainable management practice. Oman believes that any future consideration under CITES should be based on the best available scientific information and should recognize the progress achieved through a national conservation effort. We welcome the planned international meeting of Boswellia and look forward to sharing Oman experience and cooperation with all parties to support the long-term conservation, sustainable use of Boswellia species. Thank you, Chair.
Merci. Observateur. Traffic. Pardon, Kenya.
Thank you, Chair. Kenya is a range state for Boswellia species. I will be happy to share information on our populations, and we look forward to the time will be requested to provide such through the notification, and also look forward to sharing with other range states, traders and consumers on the state of affairs of our species in the country. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Je remercie le Kenya. Je donne maintenant la parole à Traffic.
Thank you, Chair. This intervention is on behalf of Traffic and the IUCN. We welcome the progress reported by the Secretariat on the implementation of decisions 228 to 230 concerning Boswellia species and supports the planned next steps. Should funding become available, Traffic, together with the IUCN Medicinal Plant Specialist Group, would like to express our interest in helping to organize the proposed in-person meeting on Boswellia. This meeting would provide an important opportunity to bring together range, transit, and consumer states, together with other stakeholders, to strengthen trade monitoring and traceability, and support the sustainable management and trade of these species. We also welcome the Secretariat's planned engagement with the World Customs Organization to explore the development of taxon-specific HS codes for Boswellia species, and notes that FAO could also be a valuable partner in these efforts, given its role in compiling forest statistics through the Global Forest Resources Assessment, including information on non-wood forest products. Thank you, Chair.
Merci à Traffic. Pas d'autres demandes d'intervention. La conclusion serait la suivante. Le comité prend note du document avec les commentaires en session. Maintenant, nous passons au dernier point, qui est le point 20, sur les orientations sur la terminologie relative à la production et à la source des plantes réglementées par la CITES. Membre du comité, vous avez la parole. Pas de demande de parole de la part des membres du comité. Partie ayant statut d'observateur. Observateur. Pas de demande. Donc, concernant ce point, le comité pour les plantes prend note du document PC28 Doc 20. Je vous remercie. Alors, comme je l'ai signifié en début de séance, nous allons, après avoir examiné tous les points qui étaient prévus à l'ordre du jour dans cette séance, nous allons passer maintenant à l'examen des différents documents et nous allons commencer par le résumé des séances PC 28 somme 1. Y a-t-il des observations sur ce document ? Membres du comité, partie ayant statut d'observateur et observateur. Alors, sur le PC 28 somme 1, le nom de la représentante de la région Asie a été écorché, donc c'est bien Miss Zheng avec un Z à la fin, pardon. J'ai dit quoi, un Z? Un G à la fin. Donc c'est moi qui suis fatiguée. Je ne vois pas de demande de parole. On va passer au document PC 28 somme 2. Donc, pas d'objection, le document PC 28 somme 1 a été adopté. On passe au PC 28, somme 2. Vous avez la parole. Brésil.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 5 of PC 28, Sum 2, under the item 24, ao Brasília Quinata, it reads, the Plants Committee established an in-session working group on rosewood.
Merci, Brésil. D'autres demandes de parole sur ce document PC Somme 2? Observateur? Alors, le PC 28, somme 2 est adopté avec amendement. Nous passons maintenant à l'examen du document PC 28 comme 1. Je donne la parole à la spécialiste de la nomenclature botanique du Comité pour les plantes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Nomenclature Working Group considered items from PC 28 Doc 31 and nomenclature-related matters from PC 28 Doc 25. We had 6 hours of intense but very interesting discussions. However, we could not reach a final conclusion on many aspects of the mandate. The working group report summarizes the recommendations from our deliberations, as well as some general observations that emerged during the discussions, which the working group feels are important to note and record. In line with mandate point A, the working group revised the reference framework of activities to be considered when commissioning a CITES checklist, and this revised template is contained in Annex 1 to the working group report. Annotations and other additional information were deemed to be unstable and outside the scope of a nomenclature reference, but better suited for inclusion in other types of documentation. These were thus deleted from the revised reference framework. And this includes common names where additional considerations were evaluated, including the workload of sourcing and evaluating common names and possible sensitivities linked to the use of certain common names. Parties are still encouraged to include appropriate common names in amendment proposals, and these will be incorporated into the CITES checklist of species. Under mandate point B, the ongoing work considered the aspects of the working group considered the aspects summarized in paragraph 26, as well as the draft checklist for taxa species in Annex 1 of PC 28 Doc 31. Input was received regarding amendments and corrections required, that will be forwarded to the checklist authors for incorporation. Further investigation and discussion regarding the matters in paragraph 26 would be required before finalizing any recommendations in this regard. Under mandate point C, the working group concluded that creating timestamped extracts to serve as standard nomenclature references for most of the taxa mentioned in paragraph 45 of PC 28.31 would be useful, but that further discussion would be required before finalizing any recommendations in this regard. The working group did conclude that Hoodia species will continue to be recognized in that genus and that the inclusion of these taxa in a broad concept of Ceropegia will not be followed by CITES. The working group further concluded that there is no need to create a standard nomenclature reference for the Dideriaceae species listing, since there were no nomenclatural changes in this group or implementation challenges since its inclusion 50 years ago in Appendix 2. Further, under mandate point C, regarding the taxa where the creation of custom checklists are recommended in paragraph 46 of PC 28.31, the working group concluded that this approach will be useful. However, further discussion would be required before finalizing any recommendations in this regard, especially concerning the tree fern, Cyathea species, and the succulent euphorbias. The working group did conclude that the species previously included in the genus Munadinium are not included in the Appendix 2 listed of the succulent euphorbia species, and that the custom checklist should include background information and provide clarity in this regard. The working group recommends that the proposed way forward in subparagraph 46C for the carnivorous plants and subparagraph 46D for the cycads be followed, but that, in line with the outcome of further discussions, the nomenclature specialist negotiates with the authors of these references, if required, to ensure that the nomenclature agreed upon by CITES is reflected. Under mandate point D, the working group concluded that further discussion is required regarding the amendments to family placement as proposed in paragraph 49A and B of PC 28.31 before finalizing any recommendations in this regard. Under mandate point E, the working group concluded that further discussion is required regarding the implications of transferring Dipsis decarae and Dipsis decipiens to Chrysalidocarpus before finalizing any recommendations in this regard. Under mandate point F, the working group concluded that final recommendations regarding the nomenclature aspects highlighted in Annex 2 to PC 28.25 can only be finalized following further investigation and discussion. And further, under mandate point F, UNEP WCMC confirmed that the inclusion of a cross-reference to the Medicinal Plant Name Service in the CITES checklist of species and Species Plus is technically feasible, but not in the CITES trade database. However, further discussion is required while considering several matters that can impact this work, including available funding, as well as the pending changes to the Medicinal Plant Name Service that will be replaced by the Plants for Health portal as outlined in information document PC 28 Inf 7. As part of ongoing discussions on nomenclature matters, feedback from parties will be required to clarify certain aspects, especially regarding the impact of proposed changes on implementation of the Convention. The working group therefore invites the nomenclature specialist to request the Secretariat to issue a notification to parties if appropriate. So, Madam Chair, based on the large number of items where further investigation and discussion is required in order to finalize recommendations, I suggest for your consideration the establishment of an intersessional working group with a mandate as contained in recommendation F of this working group report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci à la spécialiste de la nomenclature botanique du comité. Je vais donner la parole aux membres du comité pour avoir un retour sur ce rapport. Puis je passerai aux parties ayant statut d'observateur et aux observateurs. Membres du comité. Pas de demande de parole. Brésil, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm really sorry to having to go back to summary 2, but again, there's a very important issue here that was extensively discussed in plenary, and we see it reflected once again in the documents. In the Spanish version of SEM 2, we have the word viabilidad, which would translate to feasibility once again. So the English version does not have this feasibility reference. I believe that I would like for the Secretariat to check, but in my view, the French version is okay, but the Spanish version has an extra word, the viabilidad. That reflects the discussions that we had regarding feasibility. So we would like to see it removed from the text. Thank you.
Ok, merci à la représentante du Brésil. Je vais d'abord conclure sur le document sur lequel nous étions en train de travailler, PC 28 comme 1. Je vais aussi faire l'examen du PC 28 comme 2 et je reviendrai sur votre préoccupation avant. Donc, concernant le PC 28 comme 1, j'aimerais savoir si les membres du comité sont d'accord pour qu'un groupe intercession soit établi avec le mandat qui est porté au paragraphe F des recommandations du document PC 28 comme 1. Vous avez la parole. Je ne vois pas de demande de parole, donc il n'y a pas d'objection à ce que pour la part des membres du comité, que ce groupe soit établi en intercession. Quel est l'avis des parties ayant statut d'observateur et des observateurs? Ah, Mexico.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Solo una duda de procedimiento. ¿Estamos de acuerdo en el grupo interseccional? Porque esto es muchísimo trabajo para terminarlo durante la reunión. Esto quiere decir que el ComDoc queda pendiente para seguirlo trabajando o se adoptaría en esta reunión.
Merci. En fait, ce document présente un certain nombre de recommandations. Donc, de la recommandation A à la recommandation E, c'est prendre note du document. Et après, nous avons ce groupe de travail à établir. Donc, nous allons convenir des recommandations qui sont listées dans ce document. Une fois que nous sommes d'accord, nous allons passer maintenant, si vous êtes d'accord sur la recommandation F, nous allons maintenant passer à l'établissement de ce groupe de travail. Donc c'est pour ça, comme les autres, il s'agissait de prendre note et tout ça, moi j'insiste d'abord sur l'établissement du groupe de travail. Est-ce que vous êtes d'accord ou pas? J'ai pas vu d'objection de la part des membres du comité. Vous êtes la partie observatrice qui s'est exprimée. Avez-vous d'autres choses à rajouter?
Sí, gracias, señora presidenta. No quiero romper consenso ni nada por el estilo. Es que México hizo una intervención en plenaria porque no pudimos participar en el grupo, en particular sobre los nombres comunes. Vemos que hay una sección de General Observations al final del documento. Solo quiero tener claro si eso sigue abierto a debate para que México pueda presentar sus argumentos en el grupo interseccional.
Ok, Mexique. Donc, il s'agit du rapport du groupe de travail. Donc, nous ne pouvons pas le modifier. C'est le groupe de travail qui fait son rapport. Par contre, ce qu'on peut vous demander, c'est de faire la requête pour que vos commentaires soient spécifiquement notés dans les report summary. Voilà, summary records. Ok. Bien, merci. Donc, la spécialiste de la nomenclature, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify that we did, during our discussions, take the comments that Mexico made during plenary into consideration. And it was the general feeling of the working group that there's too many, I don't want to say inconsistencies, but too many matters around common names that is sensitive and difficult, and that the working group agreed that it shouldn't be part of the list of required information in a nomenclature reference, but that these could be presented in other types of documentation linked to CITES listed species. That's why we removed it from the list of information that has to be in a nomenclature reference. And the note under the general considerations explains that way of thinking in the nomenclature working group. So just to ensure Mexico that we did take the comments into consideration, but yeah, I think it's important to note their concerns. Thank you.
Merci à la spécialiste de la nomenclature botanique du comité pour les plantes. Donc, nous allons examiner le point PC28 comme 1 et ses recommandations. Je pense que le comité convient des recommandations A à D. Maintenant, je n'ai pas vu d'objection pour l'établissement du groupe de travail en intercession. Donc, le mandat du groupe de travail est stipulé des paragraphes I à 13 du paragraphe F. Il est ainsi établi, le président de ce groupe de travail serait Madame Ronel, spécialiste de la nomenclature botanique du comité pour les plantes. Maintenant, j'ouvre la liste pour la composition du groupe de travail. Membres du comité, vous avez la parole. Vous pouvez vous inscrire. On va commencer par noter Asie, Europe, Afrique, Amérique centrale, Sud et Caraïbes, maintenant, nous passons aux partis ayant statut d'observateur. États-Unis, Suisse, Canada, Afrique du Sud, République de Corée, Royaume-Uni, Fédération de Russie, Allemagne, Mexique, Irlande, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Mexique et Irlande, est-ce que vous pouvez appuyer sur le bouton pour disparaître de la liste? Merci. Alors, Brésil. Maintenant, les observateurs. UICN, UNEP. Merci. Afrique du Sud.
Thank you, Chair. May we still make a comment on the actual working group report? We've got a question on it.
Allez-y.
Okay, there's no translation. I assume that means yes. We've looked through the report. We can't see any mention on the way forward for CITES and the family Stangeriaceae. We know that it was discussed in the working group. It doesn't appear to be reflected in the report. Thanks.
Je donne la parole à à la présidente du groupe de travail pour apporter les précisions que vous sollicitez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think after 6 hours of deliberations, we might just have missed something there. Just give me a second. Thank you for South Africa for pointing that out, because we definitely did discuss it. I'm just trying to find it in the document. So those are the, so I think recommendation D captures that, notes that we note that further discussion is required regarding the creation of custom checklist for the taxa in paragraph 46 of PC 28 document 31. And that would include the CITES, sorry, just what was the other group that was missing?
L'Afrique du Sud.
Well, related to the CITES, the Sangiriaceae. Maybe if you could just specify them particularly to make it clear. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so it's the CITES. So that is paragraph 46D. And we say there that subparagraph C and D, which is then the carnivorous plants and the CITES, we support the approach outlined in the PC 28 document 31. But yes, it would maybe be more clear if we say there that with the exception, or just name there the CITES and the carnivorous plants. So if we say with the exceptions of subparagraph C for carnivorous plants and D for CITES, and then continue with where the working group supports the approach. If that would be more clear.
Afrique du Sud.
Yes, thank you. That's a good solution. Thanks.
Merci à l'Afrique du Sud et à la spécialiste de la nomenclature. Je pense que le secrétariat a pris bonne note des amendements que vous avez apportés. Donc, nous, dans le cadre du comité, nous avons pris note, nous allons prendre note des paragraphes A, B, C, D, tels que amendés. D amendés. Nous avons convenu d'établir le groupe de travail intercession et maintenant le comité pour les plantes invite la spécialiste de la nomenclature d'avoir plus d'informations de la part des parties si nécessaire en demandant au secrétariat d'envoyer des notifications aux parties. Voilà. Et nous allons prendre note également des observations générales qui sont dans le document PC 28 comme 1. Nous passons maintenant au document PC 28 comme 2. Je donne la parole à la présidente de ce groupe de travail.
Thank you, Chair, and to the members of the working group for their participation. Regarding Part A of the mandate, the working group recommends to note that the original high, medium, and low priority lists were derived from the Rosewood Report, while additions proposed in PC 28 Com 2 are drawn from the compilation of notification responses as per the annex to document PC 28, document 22. We also agreed that prioritization decisions should be based on the best available information and suggested this prioritization approach could be broadened to CITES listed species more generally, taking into account existing mechanisms such as the RST. And we agreed that the prioritization tree in the Rosewood Report could support further prioritization work and, if extended to other taxa, could readily be adapted subject to external resources. Regarding Part B of the mandate, the full summary of recommendations is in PC 28 Com 2 under Part 2. I won't read out every single recommendation here. Ask the committee to please refer to the document. But just to summarize some of the key points here, the working group felt that a revision of the Rosewood Report was not required. However, they did see value in separating out the fact sheets that are within the report and having them stand alone on the CITES and Forests website, and subject to further funding, those would be updated. And then concerning the priority list of species that the working group agreed, it was requested that the new high and medium priority list and the priority list of species is also included on the CITES and Forests webpage with the fact sheets that are available. And then concerning Part C of the mandate, the working group did not feel that they needed to have an intersessional working group to continue their work. Thank you.
Merci à la présidente de ce groupe de travail. Membres du comité, avez-vous des commentaires? Pas de commentaires. Donc, Allemagne, vous voulez toujours la parole?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and I would like to thank the chair of the in-session working group that she has guided us very well through the work. And I also, I think maybe we have discussed this very intensively, but regarding recommendation in paragraph E on page 1, we could delete the word rosewood. So it would only read of species-specific fact sheets as per the updated priority list, because the priority list now contains also non-rosewood species. I hope I'm not reiterating or starting the same discussion again. If so, forgive me, please.
Merci aux représentants de l'Allemagne. Le Canada, vous avez la parole.
Thank you. We would agree with Germany's suggestion. We would also like to request a change to row 1.1 under column response to be provided by the Plants Committee. For consistency, we would ask this to be formulated as a PC response rather than a partial record of decisions or discussions with attribution to a single party. So we would suggest the sentence be amended as follows: to make fact sheets more relevant in the long term, they should focus on data that is not subject to change. Therefore, it is not recommended to include national level NDFs or FMU plans. Thank you.
Canada, est-ce que vous pouvez répéter lentement, s'il vous plaît?
Of course, Madam Chair. To make fact sheets more relevant in the long term, they should focus on data that is not subject to change. Therefore, it is not recommended to include national level NDFs or FMU plans. Did you catch all that? Thank you.
Merci. Madame la présidente du groupe de travail, nous voulons avoir quelques précisions, notamment concernant le paragraphe 1A qui fait référence à l'annexe du document PC 28 Doc 22, mais nous pensons qu'il pourrait faire également référence au paragraphe 2 du document PC 28 comme 2. Êtes-vous d'accord avec cette proposition?
Yes, I can agree. Thank you.
Merci. Alors, nous allons conclure sur ce point. Le comité pour les plantes convient des recommandations au paragraphe 1 du document PC 28 comme 2, tel que clarifié par la présidente du groupe de travail et modifié par l'Allemagne. Est-ce que vous êtes OK avec ce premier point? Oui, pas d'objection. Nous passons au deuxième point. Alors, le comité pour les plantes convient d'adopter les recommandations figurant dans le tableau du paragraphe 2 du document PC 28 comme 2 et demande au secrétariat d'en tenir compte dans la mise en œuvre du paragraphe C de la décision 20-233. Voici la conclusion pour le paragraphe 2. Pas d'objection. Et pour le paragraphe 3, le comité pour les plantes convient de ne pas établir un groupe de travail en intercession sur cette question. Pas d'objection. Je reviens sur la recommandation numéro 2. J'ai oublié d'ajouter qu'elle a été modifiée par le Canada. Voilà. Secrétariat, c'est bon? Ok, merci. Donc, nous avons révisé les points, les documents PC 28 comme 1 et PC 28 comme 2. Nous allons revenir sur le document PC somme 2 par rapport à la préoccupation du Brésil. Oui, somme 2. Nous l'avions déjà adopté, mais vous aviez une préoccupation concernant la version espagnole. Donc, est-ce que l'on peut dire que le document PC28, somme 2, est adopté avec la modification apportée par le Brésil concernant le point 24 et la version en espagnol sera corrigée pour s'aligner à la version en anglais. Ça vous va, Brésil? Merci. Donc, le document PC28, somme 2, est adopté avec les modifications qu'on vient d'apporter. Merci. Ok, donc nous en avons terminé avec la session de ce jour, mais je voulais savoir si vous êtes d'accord pour que nous avancions sur la prochaine session, mais en examinant les rapports des régions. Est-ce que vous êtes d'accord? Sachant que pour chaque rapport, vous avez à peu près 2 à 3 minutes. Si vous êtes OK, on avance, sinon ça sera pour demain. Ah, ITTO, vous aviez... OK, excusez, on n'avait pas vu. Pouvez nous dire sur quel point vous voulez revenir, s'il vous plaît?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the opportunity. And I'm really sorry and apologize to colleagues here for drawing Madam Chair back to PC Psalm 28. On the executive summary, PC Psalm 2, we have noticed that on the matter of membership for agenda item 10, that is CITES and forests. ITTO was actually a member of this in-session working group, but we have noticed that ITTO is not there. I'm drawing the attention of Madam Chair so that when we come to the Chair's report, whatever submission that we made yesterday with regard to in-session discussion on this matter, at least there will be legitimacy to give credit to ITTO for its submission. But if we are not here, well captured, then there will be a problem. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Merci, ITTO. Ok, alors aux représentants de ITTO, votre nom n'apparaît pas sur les notes que nous avons concernant la composition du groupe de travail. Mais nous allons vérifier sur les enregistrements vidéo si vous êtes listé parmi les membres de ce groupe de travail. Et à ce moment-là, si oui, le document sera amendé en conséquence. Voilà. Amérique du Nord, vous avez la parole.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Yo sé que esto es parte de las formalidades como se trabaja en los comités. Solo quiero mencionar que como presidente del grupo de trabajo, ITTO estuvo presente e incluso fue bastante activo en los debates. Pero esto es distinto de el momento en el que se establece el grupo de trabajo y cuando se mencionan los miembros, tanto de países como de observadores, lo que la minuta debe estar reflejando es lo que sucedió en la plenaria al establecimiento. Simplemente que tengan conocimiento de que ya en los trabajos del grupo participaron activamente. Gracias.
Merci pour cette précision. C'est pour ça que nous allons vérifier sur les enregistrements vidéo au moment de la plénière si l'OIBT était vraiment considéré comme membre de ce groupe de travail. Il y a eu 2 vérifications, on n'a pas vu son nom apparaître et la vidéo permettra vraiment de confirmer ou pas la présence. OIBT, vous voulez encore, vous avez une demande de parole?
You for confirming that you will go back to check on the video. But yes, indeed, I can confirm that I was present on Monday and then showed my hand, and then you granted me opportunity to be a member of this intercession group. Thank you.
Ok, la vidéo le prouvera alors. Merci. Ok. Et merci pour votre participation active à ce groupe de travail. Voilà. Alors, j'en reviens aux membres du comité. Est-ce que nous pouvons aborder la partie relative à la présentation des rapports régionaux? Et vous avez 3 minutes pour cela. Donc, soyez succincts. Sinon, ça sera du temps pour demain. C'est bon, on peut avancer. Donc, région Afrique, vous avez la parole.
Madam Chair, I would suggest we do tomorrow.
Bon, c'est OK, préparez-vous pour demain. 3 minutes, pas plus, chrono en main. Donc, merci à tous pour cette session qui a été très fructueuse et j'aurai plaisir à vous revoir demain.